other participants to join us. So kindly have patience. We are going to start very soon. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a beautiful Saturday evening on a weekend, and we bring to you a fantastic webinar. On behalf of JD Institute, we welcome all of you to the webinar Dictating the Fashion Industry. Good evening, students and parents. I, Ankur Gulati, along with my colleague, Ms. Nidhi Bose, are here to talk about the field of fashion business and its many aspects. This session will throw light on areas of business of fashion to propel fashion business and many important business and marketing related aspects. So before we start the webinar, I just would like to give you a quick introduction. We have with us Ms. Nidhi, who has a vast expertise of over 20 years in the fashion, academic and apparel industry, and also senior faculty at JD Institute of Fashion Technology. Welcome, Ms. Nidhi. I'm Ankur Gulati, head of fashion department at JD Institute with over 20 years of work experience in the apparel industry, academics, and fashion styling. So let me start by mentioning that design is a solution and design is aesthetics. Fashion design is one of the most sought after course when it comes to creative careers to choose from. It's known to be extremely creative and skillful. Many aspire to become a successful fashion designer and own an enterprise, big or small. Creativity is always put to the test when it comes to practical approach and, most importantly, commercial viability. It's the commercial viability that does not necessarily amount to mass production, catering to the masses, but rather being successful at delivering a product, merchandise on time, at the right price, for the right occasion or the season. This is a synergy between design and merchandising. And if that synergy is out of sync, then the entire purpose of designing any product is defeated. So let's throw some light on the business of fashion today. Nidhi, over to you to explain what business of fashion really is and what are various components associated with the same.
Thank you, Ankur, and thank you so much for a very warm welcome. And good evening to the audience. It's a pleasure to meet on screen. And very well summarized, Ankur, very well introduced, if I may say. The world of fashion is very, very mesmerizing. And, it looks very glitzy. But what most of us probably do not realize is that there is a lot of hard work and meticulous planning that goes on behind the scenes in order for a designer or a brand or a retailer, for that matter, to have its collection presented on time, to the very, very discerning and, consumer who has great taste in today's day and time. So what you said very correctly just now, that, having the right merchandise is probably just a small part of it, but the right occasion, the right timing, the right price. So like you said, the business of fashion is, it's a very complicated process overall. And with regards to the components, while we are going to speak about it in detail during the webinar, but I'd like to briefly introduce that the components of the fashion world are not only apparel, but also the related industry. So, when it comes to the supply chain, the partners such as warehouses, transporters, shippers, in fact, the fiber and textile industry, the ancillary industries of accessories, etc., are also hugely dependent on the fashion industry. And so when we talk about the fashion industry, all of these would be the components of the fashion industry as well. Starting on a very optimistic note, I'd like to also mention that the world of fashion is seeing quite a few changes due to the pandemic. And the way people are working these days from home, how they're spending their free time, the way they are buying their clothes, even that is, changing their lifestyles. Everything is going through a lot of change. And undoubtedly, the fashion industry is also facing these challenges and rising up to the occasion. So it's a very interesting time, to be honest, in the fashion industry.
Yeah, I so agree with you, Nidhi. But can you also tell me what are people buying? What are these people who are buying these in the current scenario? Factors which are working for the fashion industry. I mean, really need to understand how are people buying? What are they buying in this current scenario? If you could throw some light here.
Surely. So like I mentioned, Ankur, over the years, fashion industry has become very, very important in India. And, like I briefly mentioned, when I say fashion industry, it just doesn't mean apparel. Okay. So it would include apparel, accessories, footwear, jewelry, all of these as well, as all of them are closely related and interdependent. To give a very small example, if you were to buy a sari, okay, for wearing to a wedding, you'll also end up teaming up that sari with, some jewelry, some nice, a bag, obviously some shiny sandals. So it's all, related to each other. And fashion industry doesn't only include, the designers, the way we know them, but it also includes, exports. It also includes the manufacturing side. So, I love to always back up the, conversations with figures. So, if I let us, in order to try and understand the fashion industry, let's see at some figures to understand what really is happening in India and where are we really headed. Okay. So one of the chief consultants to the fashion industry, Wazir Consultancy, in its report of 2020, has advised that almost 16% of the spending of a family in India on an average goes into apparel and accessories, jewelry and footwear in the order of spending. One major factor which contributes to the fashion spending in India is that, as per UN, India has a very young population. In fact, the UN figures estimate the median age of an average Indian to be below 30. So what does that really mean? It really means that today's Indian consumer is young, he's earning, very indulgent, looks for self-satisfaction, very well traveled, brand conscious, and extremely well connected thanks to the mobile phones and iPads and the tablets that all of us have. The consumer therefore has a huge amount of spending power and is also open to experiment and explore his potential. This also obviously translates into his fashion choices. And one of the reasons why we see so many foreign brands scampering to enter the Indian market is because of this huge demographics of the Indian consumer. So, a very positive time, I would say, for the Indian fashion industry.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, it's quite a respite to hear that. Also, Nidhi, to break it down, could you walk us through the industry and what might lie ahead for current students and prospective students that might have in future, or they have a concept that they want to join fashion, what the industry is like, or the business behind it? If you could just walk us through, it'd be great.
Surely. So like I mentioned, the fashion industry could be broken down into the retail part of it, which is the selling part of it. And of course, the behind the scenes, the manufacturing part of it. To begin with, let me talk about the manufacturing part of the fashion industry. In fact, a lot of our JD alumni have also turned entrepreneurs by launching their own labels, their own design houses, their own manufacturing houses. Some who have, some who already had their own businesses have gained the knowledge during, while pursuing the courses in our college and applied all this knowledge to their existing businesses. So when we come to talk about the manufacturers, the manufacturing of fashion apparel could be either supplying to domestic brands, or it could also mean that you are exporting to other countries. If I talk about the Indian fashion export industry, it is very well matured and it is doing very well. There was a minor setback due to COVID, where there were very few orders, order cancellations were happening. But the ground news today is that most of the factories are overflowing with the orders, and with the world limping back to normalcy, almost everything seems all right as of now. If someone wants to work with the export industry, the options could be to work in the manufacturing setup as a as a factory itself, or with a liaison office of some of the world's best known brands which have set up their office in India, such as Gap or Target or Polo. They also have an option of working with buying agencies which represent the various clients across Europe and US. I would always like to elaborate a little bit more because, job roles at each of these places would be a little different. So the manufacturing industries, could have some great opportunities in the product development, merchandising, and production departments. So what does a fashion designer or a fashion graduate really do in a manufacturing setup? So if he's very creative, he or she may be working as a designer at an export house or international liaison office or buying agency, like I said. He or she would be responsible for creating and presenting lines for his clients for a season, attending client meetings and getting samples ready, etc. If a fashion management student, one who loves following up and coordinating and has a flair for language, for him or her, the responsibilities could be working with the client one-on-one and coordinating with the various in-house departments such as production, design, and quality. Furthermore, if somebody is more on the technical side, a student with basically a keen sense of product quality or workmanship and loves working with patterns or with samples and stitching it themselves, they can also opt for working in the production and quality departments for export houses or liaison offices. Obviously, he'll be responsible in his role for ensuring good and timely product quality. So lots of options for people who want to work on the manufacturing side.
Fantastic. I mean, we're getting so much insight on opportunities that we've heard really from the export side. Would you like to talk about what happens on the retail side, Nidhi, of the fashion business? You know, on the domestic retail side, for example, a store manager, merchandiser, coordinator, and probably perhaps a showroom manager, because we're seeing a big boom in the domestic industry, and that's always been expanding. And you just mentioned that there are a lot of brands coming in, and probably you'll throw some light on that as well. But what would be the scenario for the domestic retail, if you could throw some light there?
Okay, surely. So when I was passing out of my college, when I was graduating, at that point in time, everybody advised us to go into exports.
Yes.
But this is the time that you have, today's students are lucky because they can go into exports as well as they can go into retail, and both are equally promising. So I would like to, say that retail is equally, if not more interesting than manufacturing. If a prospective fashion graduate wants to work on the retail side, he will have quite a few choices again. He could work on the buying side. So that let me rephrase that. There are certain activities on the retail side which happen on the face of it, and certain activities which happen behind the back. So let me first begin with behind the back. Okay. Sure. Important, but behind the back. So, a person, a fashion graduate, can actually become a buyer. Okay, so what does a buyer do? A buyer would be responsible for developing the long-term 6-month buying plan. Okay, and basically ordering assortments for each season, which primarily means what should the store be really having. Okay, a buyer's life is very interesting. As he or she gets to travel to various markets and trade shows. And the main job is to look for the right kind of merchandise to stock in the store, buy for the store. Also, at the same time, the job is interesting, but full of responsibilities. So it is his final decision of what to stock the store with. And if he goes wrong there, then obviously the entire store, sales can go haywire. The second role that, prospective fashion design graduate can do is get into the role of merchandising. Now, a merchandiser's role in domestic trade is slightly more different than the one in the export house. A merchandiser in the retail segment assists the fashion company with meeting objectives through technologically and mathematically calculated solutions. Now, this may seem a little technical, but if I put it in just plain, simple terms, it basically means he sees the figures of the sales. He realizes which are the best sellers, which lines need a little bit of push in terms of right placement or some discounts. What are the numbers that he's working with, and he reports these back again to the buyers. So in one small term, he's probably the number cruncher for the retail brand. And then, of course, on the a fashion design student can always join as a designer, and like in the export segment, a designer is expected to be aware of the trends which are in. And he should definitely have a good eye for detailing. That's something that I think almost all designers do require to have. A designer would be working very closely with both the buyer and the merchandiser. When it comes to the storefront, a fashion student may have the opportunity to join in as a visual merchandiser or a showroom manager, somebody who's responsible for displaying fashion lines, presenting collections, managing multiple retail accounts, etc. He could work as a merchandise coordinator, somebody who's responsible for coordinating with the warehouse and whatever is selling on the shop floor. and he could be a store manager, which is basically the responsibility of hiring people to work at the storefront, training them, and overseeing overall the employees, and how the merchandise is really moving. So lots of options there again, Ankur. Interesting options as well.
Fantastic. I really recall when you mentioned, during our time, there was really only the export industry where we were just pushed into. And today the students or prospective students have a huge spectrum of scope where the domestic industry is now organized. I recall the time when it was really the export industry, which was an organized sector, and domestic sector was still coming up in a disorganized manner, mushrooming here and there. Today we see a very structured, organized domestic market, manufacturing and design. We're also seeing domestic brands opening their own design studios. So that's really, really quite a huge sea change from how things were in the past and how things are right now. Could you also just tell us how has the export industry, I'm sorry, I'm going back to export now. How has the export industry evolved in the last decade or so, Nidhi? If you could just give us an idea or give us a little peep into that.
Okay, so the export industry over, let's say, if I look back at my, when I started my career about 2 decades back, from then to now, there is a sea change. The kind of lead times that we used to get, lead times being the amount of time that you would have to complete an order. So when I started working, and we used to work for some of the best known US brands at that time, we had a lead time of about a good 4 to 6 months. In days, it would translate to approximately 120 to 180 days. So from the day we got the order, we had about 6 months to ship out that order. So obviously, the manufacturers would take it easy, and the approvals would take their own sweet time. And by the time the shipments would go, it would be like, we started in January and something is going in monsoons. But in today's day and time, the lead times are very, very short. Okay, and that's thanks to fast fashion brands such as Zara, H&M, etc. So today's lead time are roughly anywhere between 30 to 60 days, so which basically means you get the order on the 1st of January and you ship out by the end of January or mid of February, okay? Which basically means a lot of pressure is being built up on the suppliers and hence the supply chain, okay? So that makes it very, very challenging. A lot of this really, if I look back and think, is also because of the fact that overall the communication technology has vastly improved. So a lot of processes of emails and virtual meetings and approvals has, the process has streamlined, and that has really fastened the process. And of course, there have been major improvements in production and manufacturing capabilities as well. Another thing that I'd like to bring to your attention and to the audience attention is there is an opportunity there as well, which basically means India is facing a problem of higher costs. So we are getting competition from countries such as not only Bangladesh and Vietnam, but other countries as well, such as Germany. You'll be surprised to know Germany, Spain, Italy are also some of the European countries where a lot of good production is moving to. Okay, so there is a huge cutthroat competition for the Indian suppliers. But the optimistic me always sees it as a silver lining, and I feel that for our students, this is a great opportunity to also make their mark overseas. Having said that, Ankur, since you have about 2 decades of experience yourself, would you like to shed some light on the domestic retail trade, the way it is existing in current times?
Yeah, absolutely, Nidhi. I was just thinking about what you just mentioned, that manufacturing hubs being places like Germany. So that's a big revelation. About the domestic retail is not far behind, Nidhi. um, in the discerning consumer wanting to buy fashion, the moment it starts trending, that is the scene which we see right now. International brands these days are giving quality merchandise at very competitive prices and are able to meet the consumer tastes really well. So the challenge today is really not only to meet the shorter lead times, as you mentioned, but also making and selling fashion at a right time when consumer really wants it. Else, the brands will be caught in a loop of mid-season, end-season sales, which probably just be a bit irrelevant. I truly feel that today's youth is spoiled for choice when it comes to career options. Even if the fashion graduate wants to work independently on his own terms and conditions, he could decide to be a stylist, a freelance visual merchandiser, and also opt to work as a costume designer for the thriving television, movie, and let's not forget the OTT platforms that we see right now. This is so current, so new, bursting more opportunities for our fashion students, fresh graduates who'd like to explore other career options.
That's right. It's very interesting to see so many of our fashion design and styling students actually opt for styling careers at, like you mentioned, at these OTT serials and other platforms. And I truly feel that an existing business or brand can also benefit immensely if they know how to market their business well. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. I truly think that great marketing can help business. Can you tell us how to grow business into successful, how to grow your own business into a successful brand with the right marketing strategy? I think maybe marketing is the buzzword. And, it's really, we often have marketing that makes all of a difference. So how can we grow our business through interesting marketing or marketing strategies? If you could just talk a bit about that.
Surely, but before that, Ankur, I remember something very very funny. Yesterday, as I was driving back home, right in front of me there was an auto which said, "Marketing nahi to business nahi." Okay, so so I thought that was very interesting and so apt in today's day and time. Even the auto wala is having that tagline. So to begin with, the marketing. When we talk about the marketing, firstly, I think all of us, all the designers, all the fashion business professionals, you be it a manufacturing house, be it a brand, be it a design house, I would like to emphasize one thing, that it is very, very important that whoever you may be, you need to find out your niche. Okay, so when I say your niche, you need to know what is it that is unique about you, what is your USP, your unique selling point, and it is only then that your brand would be recognized for what it really stands for. Now, when I look back, we were taught in our fashion schools about what a great achievement has the designer stalwart Ritu Kumar achieved. Why? Because she dabbled in all the Indian textiles, and that was her signature style. If I look at more modern designers, you equate any actress wearing a chiffon sari with Manish Malhotra. Manish Arora would always be equated with his pop color usage and beautiful designs. You talk about a menswear designer who has great cuts, great fit, and you think about Narendra Kumar, instantly. So if you do not know your signature style, or you're not catering to a niche market, you'll be lost. And that's probably one of the biggest marketing lessons that almost all fashion design students, fashion enthusiasts, fashion professionals need to learn. Having your own signature is very, very important. Secondly, unlike in the past, where the initial focus of marketing used to be primarily the 4 P's: product, price, place, and how you're promoting it. These days, it is 3 additional P's. The people who are involved in making and selling it. These could be your consumers, and these could also be your own employees. If you have a happy employee, you have a happy product, you have a good quality product. If your consumer is happy, he will want to come back to you. Okay, so that's the fifth P, the people. The sixth P is the processes. Okay, what kind of processes are you really employing to make your product or to sell your product? Okay, so these days we know, even the most basic websites will offer a chatbot. That's making the process easier. And then obviously the physical environment. The physical environment could relate to the physical environment of a retail store. How easy is it for the consumer to actually walk into your store? How comfortable does he feel in that physical environment? So apart from the basic 4 Ps, you need to focus on the people, on the processes, and the physical environment. Also, the focus has to be the consumer. It cannot be on what you're making. Of course, you need to have your unique style, but the focus also has to be, what is it that your consumer wants? So I truly feel that instead of just plain simply satisfying a consumer's needs, we really need to move to delighting a consumer, giving him more than what he expects. And marketing truly follows the consumers. So if the consumers are becoming more net savvy and more connected, how can marketing be left behind? So the role of digital marketing and how important it is to be at the right digital space is something that all of us need to completely focus on. And I truly feel, Ankur, apart from marketing, I think industry is talking about a lot of other things as well. And I think that future fashion designers and industry professionals should also know something about the green initiatives, such as sustainability, recycling, that the industry is taking. Would you like to shed some light on that, Ankur, about sustainability and, the initiatives that the retail companies are taking?
I was somehow just waiting for you to ask me that question. I think, the green initiative, the carbon print, sustainability, and how the local designer manufacturers and also a lot of brands are currently very seriously looking into. Absolutely, yes, Nidhi. I think sustainability and carbon footprint is the buzzword these days. Leaving a minimal carbon footprint. And we often talk about how brands are trying to be sustainable in their efforts. So what is sustainability and what are carbon footprints? To have the best chance of avoiding a 2 degrees rise in global temperatures, the average global carbon footprint per year needs to drop under 2 tons by 2050. Now, these are statistics, and we cannot shy away from these statistics. These are scientific surveys which are being done. The Collins Dictionary defines sustainability as avoidance of the depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance. In other words, not using more natural resources than the planet can naturally replace, and not producing anything that the planet can't reabsorb. The linear model currently employed by the fashion industry of take, make, dispose is at odds with the concept of sustainability. You had mentioned fast fashion, you had mentioned Zara. Now, fast fashion and Zara are totally the opposite of sustainability, and it's really sad. However, there are brands like H&M who are making an initiative, and a lot many more brands who are making an initiative where you give back your old clothing, and alternately you get 10% of discount vouchers. So sustainable fashion, refers to garments that have been made in a way that is mindful of many environmental issues the fashion industry touches upon. The main 4 issues I feel to consider when it comes to sustainability in fashion are water consumption, energy emission, chemical usage, and waste management or waste creation. Now, these are four very, very tangible things that we're talking about. And often the fashion industry tends to ignore to quite a bit. But I think people are being mindful now of these things, being sustainable and trying to, conserve our natural resources. The word sustainability in the context, prominently refers to the raw material creating processes, manufacturing, wearing and caring for use and the disposal of clothing, which is the end use. We take resources and use water and chemicals along the way to create garments. You buy and wear garments and throw it away or donate it when you're done. But what happens? Generally, it goes to landfills or is just thrown, dumped in the seas. Today, only 20%, Nidhi, of all clothing is recycled. In order for the fashion industry to really become more sustainable, brands need to work towards developing circular systems whereby garments become fully recyclable after use, reducing the need to cater and to create virgin fibers. And while big industry players are pursuing this, it will take time. In the meanwhile, addressing our individual consumption rates by reducing the volume of clothing we buy as well as dispose of can help. And to add to that, we're also looking at another concept of upcycling. Upcycling, where you could take components of different garments, put them together, and put it to reuse at a higher value. So that is something that we're seeing right now. Unfortunately, it's a bit slow. Also, the whole concept of buying from thrift stores is not really predominant in our subcontinent. And I feel that culture needs to be brought in so that people can use clothes which are already used. And if you look at trends in Europe, and I see a lot of fashion enthusiasts buying clothes from vintage, and
Right.
vintage really meaning thrift stores. So lots and lots needs to be done. Lots is happening. I think the future is bright. We are being mindful. And I think for our young fashion designers who want to get into fashion institutes, be creative, make their own businesses, we need to look at environmental factors as well.
Yes, indeed, Ankur, very interesting observations and interesting last words on sustainability there. There is a silver lining. Not all is lost, like you very clearly said. The projects, like you said, which students take up under various stages of the college courses, and how we keep updating our students' knowledge basis the course curriculum, etc. It, I think, helps the students keep abreast with the latest happenings in this very dynamic industry. And that's the beauty of the fashion industry, that no single day is the same as the previous one, and it's all the time so dynamic. So thank you so much for some very interesting insights on sustainability there, Ankur.
Well, thank you, Nidhi, for such a wonderful insight into so many behind the scenes of fashion. And this really brings us to the end of today's session. However, I would like to throw some light on our GAT, which is a general aptitude test. We really look forward to parents encouraging their children to participate in GAT exam, which is on the 26th of February 2022, and become a part of the fashion world. We welcome you all to be a part dictating the fashion industry. So I would love to open the forum to question and answers. We'll be happy to answer your queries or anything that you have related to what we've spoken about, or anything further you'd want to know about fashion, business of fashion. But even then, before doing that, Nidhi, I have a few questions which were sent to us while we had the registration going on for the webinar. So there's one question which I have a garment export house. I would want my child to expand the business. How can the course at JD help? So I think I'll answer this question.
Sure, please go ahead.
It's obvious that it's probably from a parent or a guardian. And first of all, I welcome this question to know, to understand, and to also realize that parents are concerned and they are mindful of what they want their children to do in the field of fashion. I think one way is to have a conversation with your child at home, since you already have a fashion business or fashion related business. The child, in any case, probably is exposed to some fashion business conversations at home. So I think encouraging that would be a great idea. What we teach at JD Institute is really something which is experiential. And I'll just try to explain to you what that is. Not only do we impart important knowledge and information, we at JD follow a structured way of engaging students in debates, group discussions, case studies. Besides, we have quite a few industry experts coming in every now and then, sharing their experiences, their views with our students. So, this provides a wholesome experience for our students. So, JD Institute would be the apt place, and I think a place where we can give them an experiential learning, a 360-degree learning. So that is my answer. The second question, Nidhi, I see here, between the two, domestic retail or manufacturing, which one should a student choose and why? I think you'd be the right person to answer that question, Nidhi.
Right. Okay. So, between the two, domestic and manufacturing, like I said, had you asked me this question 20 years back, when we were passing out, the answer would have been closed eye, go into the manufacturing sector or go into the export sector.
Yes.
But today's times are slightly different. Why? Because both the manufacturing as well as the retail sectors are doing very well. So if you truly ask me, the answer would be based on a few variables. Firstly, what is it that the student really wants to do? Okay, so does he want to really start a brand of his own? Does he want to head a manufacturing setup a few years down the line? What are the student's personal objectives would help him or her decide that. And if you look at, like I said, both the sides of the industry, retail as well as export, like we discussed, in the last hour or so, both have tremendous opportunities. And along with opportunities, their own sets of challenges. So what a student would like to do should primarily be decided by where his or her interest lies. And, I would always like to advise a student to follow what he feels like doing, okay? Follow his or her heart, because that will ensure, that success would follow him.
Great. So another question, Nidhi, what do you think today's students are lacking? I don't know from where this question is coming from, but it's a question. What do you think today's students are lacking? If you'd like to throw some light.
Okay, so today's students, I would say, are blessed in many ways. So if I look back again, back to our times, we did not have so much of information ever. If you were supposed to research on something, we would pour hours and hours into the library looking for the right kind of source. These days, everything is available at the, at the click, at your fingertips, literally. So that's the advantage, but that is what is also making them lacking in perseverance, okay? In the perseverance to dig out the information, they're lacking the patience to look for the right kind of information. So they want everything at one go. So I probably think that this is one of the things that I would like most students to indulge in, going, back into the libraries, going, back into the research zone of it, okay? because if you spend more time looking at it, chances are that you'll get better answers. And this is also something which I feel, children or students want to give up easily when they see a roadblock, because they are not, patient enough to try their hands at something. So that's something that I feel personally, students should be learning to persevere, to have more patience at doing something.
All right, great. I see few questions, quite so many questions popping up. It's quite interesting. The few for me. So the question is, so I had never liked maths because it used to confuse me a lot. And then lately I developed a kind of fear. Somehow cleared my boards, and now I'm scared of pattern making. But I'm doing great till now because of our man, but I'm still scared. What's about the future? Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. Your pattern making faculty is making things easy for you. Also, mathematics was not my favorite subjects in school, but you need to realize that pattern making, it's how you see it. You could see it with measurements, or you could see it with creativity. What I used to do was, since I never liked too many measurements, I would take fabric and drape it on the dress form. I would drape it on the dress form, create designs on the dress form, and then trace that and convert that into a brown paper pattern. Measurements would automatically be there, and it would become much easier for me to visualize what I'm designing rather than taking measurements and creating patterns. So the answer to your question would be, I think explore more draping ideas. Draping will enhance your design ability, and then tracing those fabric traces onto brown paper, you can create your own patterns without juggling too much of 2/3 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, and so on and so forth. So that would be an answer. A question coming for you, Nidhi ma'am. How are manufacturing units managing shorter lead times?
Okay, so like I mentioned, lead times are becoming very, very challenging. And some of there are many methods, in fact, how today's suppliers are grappling and meeting with these lead times. The first and foremost thing is that you start much early. Okay, so you start getting approvals earlier, you start designing earlier, you start sending more options. So when we send out options to the clients for approvals, instead of just the usual 4 options, we would now send a palette of 8 color swatches for approval, or a collection of 2 or 3 different embroidery layouts for approval, or a collection of swatches for quality approval. So you're sending them more options early on. You're starting the entire approval process even before you get the order. Okay, so some vendors, some suppliers do this. They when they're sending their showroom sample or their salesman sample, they start sending colored swatches at that very stage. Also, a slightly expensive hedge that suppliers do is, if the retailer or if the brand or if the client has given them some indication of approximate quantity that they are likely to place, it's a slightly expensive option, but like I said, a lot of suppliers are also doing this. They buy the raw material, which in this case the gray fabric. They keep it ready with them, ready to be dyed into the colors that the client wants. Also, some basic patterns are always ready, and all that you need to do is to make slight alterations to the basic body block. So these are some of the methods, and of course, you really can't hurry up production, but mechanized methods of production, such as automated cutting, automated spreading of fabric, saves a day or so here and there, and that's adding up to the shorter lead times. So yes, lots of technological advancements, lots of out-of-box thinking is helping the suppliers to cope.
Great. So another question is, hi sir, ma'am, I have just completed my bachelor's degree in fine arts, print making, and want to know what option do I have in JD Institute? Well, various options, and one of the ones which I can just think off my head is styling. Fashion styling is so super creative. And since you've already done a degree program in fine arts, which is totally associated with aesthetics, movements, lines, one way of concluding that and sort of curating that would help you through a course which is fashion styling. And fashion styling today is not just clothing, it is also curation, how you curate things, how you put things together. So this would be a fantastic option for you. Another question is if you can tell me some career options and the exact role in the textile designing. Well, to answer that question, exact role in textile designing, I would think your question would be what would be the scope after doing a textile course. Well, if you visit cities or cities, places like Panipat, you go to Salem, you go down south, you go north, where there's knitting happening in Ludhiana. These are the textile hubs of India, and they're spread all across India. Scope is immense. When you look at home furnishing, we look at textiles, which is almost 99.9% raw material of home furnishing. So if you want to get into something which is textile based, exactly, you could be a person who designs jacquard designs for textiles. You could be getting into yarn dyed designs for textiles. Textiles also have come a long way where the buyers or consumers are looking at a niche market textiles. So you could be doing custom made textiles, hand woven textiles for your clients, beautiful silk fabric, brocade handmade textiles, which are super expensive and really, really profitable. So, if you just open your horizon, if you think out of the box, and you could really look at options which textile brings. And, by the way, the essence of garment industry is textiles. So textiles will always be the base and the foundation. So the scope in textile is immense. You will need to really do an introspect and see whether you want to get into designing of textiles or would you want to get into mechanizing area of textiles, or you'd want to get into the computer design weaving of textile. And there's a whole new segment, which is knitwear. So knitwear is another area which you could explore, which comes under very much under textiles. So I think a lot of amazing questions that we've seen. I also see one last question, I think. I've been a homemaker since the last 20 years, but today at 40, I'm very keen to make my career in fashion designing. I have registered for diploma in fashion designing at JD. Is this going to help me? Age is nothing but a number. Age is nothing but a number. Whether you are 20, whether you're 40, education is never late. So whether you are 20, whether you're 40, whether you're 60, to learn something is always fruitful. So that's my principal thought. Now, secondly, of course, you can learn fashion design. It'll only make your mind more creative. You can think design better. You can solve problems in an aesthetic manner. And you could always develop products which are aesthetically either commercially valuable or for the niche market. So whoever sent in this question, I really admire you. At 40, you are very young if we're looking at age, but please don't look at age. Age is nothing but a number. education is forever and learning is always an experience. I think that is something, Nidhi ma'am, what do you have to say? I think age should never be a barrier.
Yeah, I would like to add on to what you said so correctly, sir. We've had students in JD who, were pursuing law, and they realized they did not belong there, and their true calling is fashion designing. We've had students who have left their banking careers to pursue something that their heart desires. So that you're a homemaker, that your age is a particular number, like Ankur said very correctly, should not be stopping you from joining a course that you feel is right to further your interests. Also, some form of formal training is definitely going to help you. So, you could choose a course that we have quite a few courses, as Ankur said was mentioning, on the fashion designing, styling, management side. You could choose the right kind of career. You could go through the counseling sessions. You could firstly, appear for the GAT exam that Ankur sir had mentioned, and then choose what you want to do. But age, and that you have no prior experience, but feel that fashion is your calling, is the only thing that matters. Age doesn't matter. What you've done so far doesn't matter.
Absolutely, Nidhi ma'am. I think that is so true. So I'll take in the last question, and it's rather long, so I'll quickly read this out. In a broad perspective, I want to know if myself, who's a fashion design aspirant, my knowledge till now tells me that to be a bold designer in my thinking is after getting graduation, years of job experience, or something positive plan to put myself in rather than doing what people telling me to open something raw, original after 1 or 2 years internship, which I find odd if for me, since years of experience is, I assume, mandatory to do something in the fashion design. Can you tell how wrong or right am I? Or any modifications you might, I think whoever said this question is very interesting. Number one, you need to be creative, and you know that you are. You need to practice that in a formal education system. I think that always helps. Internship is brilliant. Internship gives you a good idea of how things work in the real-time area, real-time scenario. And there's no such thing as when is it the right time for you to start your own business? So when is the right time for you to think like an established fashion designer? You can always start from small, but always have a backing of knowledge, skill-based knowledge, which you would have had at an institute, and also have, I think, just some few a time duration for your internship to gain experience. Because the moment you have academic knowledge and relative industry experience, you would be better prepared to handle business. So I think being creative is very good. Wanting to become a fashion designer is fabulous. Hold on to that thought, gain some experience, and like you said, you might have 1 or 2 years experience, and then you could start your own business or your own career. So yes, last, what is career ahead of fashion styling, as you suggested? Maybe this would be really helpful. Fashion styling opens many doors. You have media, like you also have e-commerce like Myntra.com, Amazon.in, photo shoots.
Hello,
you also have OTT, amazing programs coming on television where you get to style characters, create images in magazines, photo shoots for fashion shows, styling for fashion designers. The list goes on and on and on and on. So with fashion styling, it opens many avenues. So you do not necessarily have to be designing a product. You take a ready product, you amalgamate that and juxtapose it with few others to create an image. So that's what styling is all about. Thank you, everyone, for
Ankur, sir,
yes.
Ankur, sir, I can see one more question which I'd like to answer.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll make it really brief. So there is this another question which says, can we take orders without manufacturing unit if we have a collection? If you have a good collection, if you have a good showroom, if you have great product development capabilities, yes, you can take on orders. But it will depend upon the client if he allows you to subcontract. When I say subcontract, not making it under your own brand name or not making it under your own factory premises. There are a whole lot of subcontractors in, in Delhi, in Faridabad, in Gurgaon, and a whole lot of our students have also started subcontracting facilities. So you can take on orders yourselves and pass it on to a subcontractor to cut, make, and trim, and then finish it at your own premises and ship it under your name. It's absolutely possible.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to really wait and encourage for all of you to apply for the general aptitude test, which is happening on the 26th of February. You could reach out to us through our website. You could reach out to us through various other mediums to register for the same. It's a great opportunity, and I can see with the number of questions directing towards what can be done in the future would be a great idea to take up something formal, equip yourself, and move forward. Thank you, Nidhi, for being so insightful, and we hope to have more sessions more often. And a very, very good evening to everyone. It's a brilliant weekend. Please be safe, have fun, but be safe and keep being creative. We look forward to see you more often. And like I said, 26th Feb, go for GAT and see your potential come through. So thank you very much. And thank you everyone for being a part of us and investing your time. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Pleasure.